Shut up and sit down.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Square Rig Podcast, episode 51. Tonight we have, well, let's let them introduce
I'm the
themselves.
searcher. Greatest wrestler of all time. I'm an icon.
Right.
One thing that really bugs me is I have other hobbies besides beating people up. One of them happens to be guitar. And one of my favorite people in guitar is Jimi Hendrix. And I've seen all these guys on YouTube and all this stuff that tell you how to play Killing Floor. And they don't have a clue what they're doing. This is how you play the Killing Floor by Jimi Hendrix.
There you go. You're getting down. All right, now you got it.
There's the end.
Oh, okay.
Searcher knows.
That's right. You know, that is the vein of so many blues players. Most people cannot play that. It's very, very hard to play.
That's the Killing Floor. If you can't play that, well, don't worry about it because you would have to be an expert to be able to play that. Kind of funny.
Icons of you.
Because I'm an icon.
Oh, God.
Well, that's perfect.
That's
All
stupid.
right, so if
Man, I made
no
a
one
lot of
knows
money
who you are,
in music.
we're talking to Searcher, the promoter of ACW. We'll eventually get to ACW, but what we brought you on for is for your story. We want to know when you began, who you wrestled, who was your favorite. I told you I did a deep dive on you, but I want to hear from you as well. So you didn't kind of start out in wrestling. You actually started out in like hand-to-hand combat sports.
Yeah. Yes, I did.
All right. So when did that start to take? Well, that was probably. What year were you? What was your age on that? When did you
The
start
age that I did the first Tough Man.
Yeah.
Well, to be honest, I just told a story to my grandson the other day. There was a guy named Rooster. For real, his name was Rooster. And he wanted to beat me up. And I didn't know why. But he said, meet me at Pat Patterson's in Baldwin at the parking lot. So I figured, okay, I'll meet you at Pat Patterson and we'll fight. I was like 14, 15 years old. He's like 19 or 20.
Oh, damn.
So I get there and there's like 40 people. And I'm like, this guy brought an army. I'm getting my ass whipped. Next thing I know, the guy tells me if you win, you get $50. If you lose, you get $20. And I'm like, win what? And like, if you beat up Rooster. So Rooster was all jacked up. He got ran over by the cops. He had a warped head. Really, yeah, I mean it. This guy was jacked up. So anyhow, like you would see in a stupid movie, we get in a circle and he starts throwing, punches at me. And then I beat him up. And then I did that for a little bit. Hand to God, it's a true story here. This old guy says, you ever done pit fighting? And I go, what's pit fighting? He goes, well, they dig a hole. We put you in there with another guy and you fight. And I go, you mean like in Conan the Barbarian? Guy's like, I've never seen Conan the Barbarian. But anyhow, I did that. It was a septic tank hole just a couple of times. But after that, I stopped. I did other stuff. But then
Oh.
I needed some money. I was actually homeless. I had broken up with my wife, and so I was homeless. And I saw this flyer that said Tough Man competition. You win it, get $1,000. So you go in and get 16-ounce gloves, 3 rounds. I think they were 2-minute rounds. And I just held my glove up like this, and they would hit and hit and hit, get worn out. And when I saw that jaw, if you're a fighter, if the guy's jaw opens up, he's tired. So every time I see one of the trucker or biker or the toughest guy in the town that everybody was afraid of would get tired of beating on me and their jaw would drop down, I'd smoke them right in that jaw as hard as I could, knock them out. There wasn't one guy that I didn't knock out that first Tough Man, and I won $1,000.
Nice.
It was like, that was all, and I didn't even really get hurt. And that's what gets you hurt when you're a really good fighter. Well, you think you're a good fighter, and you think you're going to win all the time.
Right.
And then I got in the cage, and I was really good in the cage too. The only really time I think I ever got beat up and lost was the very last time I ever did it. The guy was a really big guy, and he was really oiled up, and he kept throwing elbows to the back of my head, and I couldn't get a hold of him to choke him out, because by that time I met Dan Severn, and we fought, and he beat me, and I learned how to actually wrestle, and this guy kept throwing all these shots in the back of my head. Well, then I do what's normal. I try to get around and throw one at him, but they disqualify me and tell me I cheated.
Oh.
So my last fight in the cage, I lost, basically. And I said, fuck you guys, and it's cheating and all that stuff. And I like pro wrestling anyhow. So, but I've had I had this conversation the other day. I've been in fist fights in parking lots, at concerts, at parties, everything you can think of. I have never once, and I've gotten a lot of wrestlers fight or wrestlers' faces in pro wrestling. None of them's ever thrown hands. Most of them have teared up and cried. I don't know what it is about professional wrestlers, but most of them are just, they don't want to go. And I'm happy with it now. I mean, I just, when you're fighting and you're younger, you think you're tough and you think you're invincible, but the older you get, you want to play guitar more than you want to fight. So that's where I am now.
There you are. All right. So
But
I
have
heard.
to I have to excuse this other box. It might kick him out, but it's still echoing a bit because that other box is here. And it's the
Yeah, I
one that
got a
has
good
no ag.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it did kick him out. It had a double box. It was still echoing.
okay.
So he has to come back in.
Come back in, searcher.
If he's not in here, he probably can't hear you.
Yeah.
But it was showing 6, and then it was still, even though it was muted, it was still, when he would finish, it was still echoing on the backside. And I can't fix that in post, so it doesn't echo like that.
Okay. All right. Say something, search.
Can you hear me?
Oh my God, so much better.
Perfect.
All right.
Perfect.
I can't see anything.
It's the same thing. You have to click to everybody, and then it'll come back up. The
I don't know.
3 boxes.
I barely got that earlier. I barely
Now
did that.
You need
Yeah,
a
but
tech
now
assistant over there.
you're crystal clear.
Except for
Jesus
that picture.
Christ.
That picture isn't crystal clear.
No, it's not.
There you are.
You see me?
Yeah.
I still don't see. So I go to the 3 dots.
At the
Where do I go
bottom,
at?
not on the pictures.
Not on the pictures.
No,
Yeah, there
and
should
then
be
Three
you
three
dots
click.
dots
on
at
the
the bottom.
bottom.
hmm
Yeah,
Okay, so I went there
And then
and settings, right?
webcam view.
yeah, webcam view, yeah, and it should go to everybody because it defaults to hidden. Click that, and then for everybody.
They just keep rotating.
I got everybody.
You got everyone, but now you're sideways.
Should I go?
Now
There you
you're
go.
good.
Well, then you just close it down, and it'll fix it.
Perfect.
Am I there?
You were
You're
there
there.
Okay.
finally. All right. Hey,
Okay.
so I heard a story that you were telling. It was on another
Yeah.
podcast, but I want you to tell it on our podcast too.
Sure.
Your story of Bruiser Brody.
So my dad called me what's his face for like 16 years. I don't know what the deal is, but he never liked me. It had nothing to do with me. But
Oh,
he took me to wrestling 2 times. And the first time I was real young. I don't really remember. But the second time, I think I was maybe 7, 8, maybe 9. I don't know. But Bruiser Brody, King Kong Bruiser Brody is what he was known. It was at the Checker Dome down there. And it was awesome. I mean, it was him and Abdullah, and they were hitting chairs, and it was just crazy. I just remember, and he's bloody. Both of them's bloody. It was just amazing. And we were probably, I would say, I don't know, 6, 7 rows up, and the match was over, and Bruiser Brody's about to get out of the ring, and I looked at my dad. I said, "Can I go down there?" And he hit his hand. He goes, "Yeah, yeah." So I go down there, and you know, it's just a rope, like a certain way. I think maybe they had rails. I don't really remember, but there's a rope, like, and I couldn't get past all these people because they were trying to hit him also. So I'm like running behind people trying to get, and every time I'd get on the side where he was, he'd be too far away. So I'd go and I'd run. Well, finally, I followed him through this blue curtain thing, from what I remember, and I either grabbed him or yelled at him, and he whips around. He looks down at me, and I froze. He's so big, I froze. I didn't know what to say. Like, I didn't realize where I was. I didn't know. I that's kind of like the locker room, back room, whatever. I just looked up and I said, "I want to be just like you when I grow up." And my memory is he wiped his face and wiped it across mine and said, "There's your start, kid." I turned around and I had blood on my hands and on my face, and I'm walking up, and it was great. Nothing clears a crowd more than a little kid full of blood, because people were like, "Oh my God." So it was like the Red Sea. And I remember going up to the steps going, "Oh, I can't believe it's the greatest." And my dad had 2 beers. And he goes, looked down, and goes, "What the fuck happened to you? Who stabbed you?" I'm like, "Nobody stabbed me. Bruiser Brody. He did this." And he's like, what? But yeah, he took me to a McDonald's after that. And I said I was never going to wash my face or hands. I'm not
oh.
sure if I ate my French fries with the blood on it. I hope I didn't, but knowing me, I was an idiot. That is possible. But yeah,
Like
that's
that.
actually true. I mean, God, it was cool. It was cool to be a kid back in the 70s. It really was, in the 80s. So, but yeah, that's the Bruiser Brody story.
So is that what got you liking wrestling, loving wrestling? Is that what sealed the deal?
No, my grandfather watched wrestling at the Chase, and I, you know, I lived in a very, very rural area. I mean, we lived in the middle of nowhere. I'm telling you, like, I am not exaggerating. Maybe 3 miles was the nearest other house, and then it seemed to be forever. It probably wasn't a mile, 2 miles, or whatever, to walk through the woods to get to the bus stop in the mornings. And so I would go there. So when I was in this 5th grade, we moved. My dad lost his job or something, and we went from the most country backwards, and my dad had just came back. My dad had left us for like 2 years and left me and my brother and my mom on our own. And then he comes back and he's like, "We're moving." And we had horses, we had all kinds of stuff, and they were starving. It was a long story. but I sold everything and we moved to Baldwin. And I say it's kind of the only person who knows my pain is King Kong. It's like they took King Kong from the island and took him to New York. That's what they did to the young searcher. They took him from like the middle of the woods and put him in Baldwin, where I didn't belong. Oh, my first day of school at 6th grade in Baldwin Elementary, I had a silk 70s button-up shirt with collars so long you can wipe your mouth with them, and orange button-up corduroy bell bottom pants. And now this is 1982, 80, and I did not fit in. It was terrible, man. But that year defined me. You know, we all have a year that our balls drop and we actually become young men. And that was the year that really you either changed or you know, I don't know what would have happened if I didn't, you know, just I eventually about halfway through that year really found myself and fit in and all that kind of stuff. So, but yeah.
Okay, so your grandfather was watching wrestling. I'm assuming you would go over to the
Oh,
house and watch
I got
it, or
off track. So in the mornings they would drop me off with him, and he would always talk about, you coming over Sunday, we gotta watch wrestling, and we gotta that Dick the Bruiser, and that's the, you know, all this kind of, you know, we gotta watch wrestling, you gotta come over. So we would watch wrestling. I think it was Sunday mornings, 10 o'clock. I think it was wrestling at the Chase, and that's what we did. We watched wrestling, and then we would just discuss it all day. Like we'd be out like tillering his garden there, and he'd turn and stop and goes, you know, that Harley race, he ain't as tough as you think, you know, and all this kind of stuff, you know, and it was it was a real good, wrestling was important to me, but I kind of fell out of it as I got older because once I got into martial arts and I got into like fighting, you know, I would watch wrestling, and what I got to see was I really liked the NWA because to me that was real wrestling, you know, Ric Flair, and that was a little stiffer. But when I got to like the Brutus the Barber Beefcake and that 80s wrestling, I really dropped out of that quick. I wasn't into that kind of stuff, so I stopped watching wrestling for a long time. What got me back into wrestling hardcore was the Undertaker. I didn't know who he was. I never even heard of him or anything like that. And then I flipped on the TV one time, and it was I think it was the Ultimate Warrior being locked in the casket. And I just saw this lungering monster, and I go, he's ripping off Michael Myers the way he set up and stuff. He goes, but I go, that's really cool. And that's what Undertaker is what got me back into really liking wrestling. So, but I was never a huge WWF fan. I was never that guy. I never ever wanted to be part of the WWE because I, I mean, kind of strange. Like Glenn, like I've talked to Glenn Jacobs many times, and and I'm not the only one that says it, but man, you walked into Vince's office. You're 6'9". You're 300 and almost 30 pounds of sheer muscle. You look so intimidating. And he looks at you and says, I see you as a dentist. What?
That's what I thought you were going to. I see you as a dentist.
It's so weird, you know, but I love professional wrestling. And now I really like old WWF, like the stuff I didn't like, because now I understand what they were doing. It's not about tough guy crap. It's about, you know, entertaining the fans. Right. So now I understand, you know, so.
Right. So growing up, you were more of a NWA/WCW type of guy.
100%, man. Ric Flair, Harley Race. Yeah. Bob
I
Orton,
asked that of everyone, and
do what?
everyone pretty much says they're a WWF/WWE kid.
No.
Bobby is Search. This is Bobby D, who's also my brother-in-law. He also wrestles for SICW. And then Nate
stared at me, and I don't even know who he is. Well, nice to meet you,
the
Bobby.
one in the red shirt.
You too.
He's been a friend for a long time. We used to work together, and now we work together for SICW. He does the camera work for SICW.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So, yeah, we decided to get a little group podcast together. So we've been doing this for about a little over a
A
year
year.
now.
Yeah.
Not too bad, but yeah. So just
Yeah.
to get back to
Yeah.
the subject,
Yeah.
Bobby was the
Bobby.
only one that was an NWA/WCW kid.
And
Really?
currently holds the Bruiser Brody Cup sitting behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
It's
right.
because that's
Yeah, I
where all
just
the
thought it
real
was
ones
better.
are.
I just thought it was better. It was realistic to me. It was, the storylines and the wrestling. I loved Ric Flair too. I will say this: I've had this conversation with a couple of people. The WWF had the best baby in Hulk Hogan. The NWA had the world's best heel in Ric Flair. If those two feds could have got together at the same time, they would have made a lot of money. But
Oh
they
yeah.
both fed off those two guys. So
I
I don't
think
know. Did you
Ric
hear
Flair.
Hulk Hogan said he wrestled 400 matches a year and threw 300 days a year
We
maybe
recently?
he
all
did.
know about how embellished Hulk Hogan is, but
Hey,
when Ric Flair,
doesn't every wrestler do that though? We
uh,
all, it's
well,
like fishing stories. You know.
he, his is a little bit more out there since everyone can look him up and decide. Oh no, you're fibbing. You were never the bassist for Metallica. Uh,
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
just weird shit that he used to say. Um,
He smokes
but
pot a lot, so that's probably the reason.
Well, he's saying now that his years are longer than 365 days.
He
That's
Well,
how
is
he can
usually
fit
immortal.
it
they
all
are.
in.
They are
He can
on this
only
year.
die if his head separates his body. You know that, right? He's
Yeah.
immortal. He's a Highlander.
He's
there you
Deadpool.
go.
Yeah.
He's Deadpool too. Yes.
What I was gonna say though is if when Ric Flair finally made his way up to the WWF, that was one match that they never really focused on and put their money into. And I think they should have because Hogan was there. Of course, he was battling the Undertaker when Ric Flair was there, and they tossed the belt back and forth, Hogan and the Undertaker, which is a great story on its own since Hogan says the Undertaker hurt his neck, and then Undertaker watched the match back and said your head didn't even hit the mat. It's one of those things. But they never
I've seen that
focused
match.
on
He didn't hit it.
right. But they never focused on the Ric Flair versus Hogan, and they could have done that a long time ago before the whole NWO and him coming down to WCW. They could have made a shit ton of money.
Yeah, but you know how it is. It's so hard to get people to work together. I imagine those two were buddies and stuff, but at the same time, those two had a lot to lose because someone has to lose in a series, and
Right.
I'm sure neither one of them wanted to be the one that had to, take the pin. So no.
Well, magic of wrestling, they could have worked out some scenario where they each lost one, and then, Flair didn't last too long there, so could have just sailed away with the loss or something. I don't know. But to me, it should have been up there. And being up there, they could have drew a lot more money than what they did with Hogan and WCW. Because as soon as Hogan got down there, they immediately put him with Flair and immediately took the belt off of Flair to put it on Hogan. So I don't know.
Well, I think
So
Flair was so dedicated to Crockett and then Turner at that time. I just think Flair was very in what you want as a promoter and a booker. You want your guys to be really dedicated to the federation. And I think Flair, no matter what, was always dedicated to the NWA, to WCW. I think so. Why he did that was he was willing to do that because it was going to elevate WCW. I don't think he was all that. I think when he went to New York, he said, "Pay me." But I think when he went down, when he was in WCW, he felt like that was his home. And I
right.
think that he just went, "I'll do anything to make us, number one."
Yeah, he kind of talked a little bit about being miserable in the later WCW days, but like you said, it was home. Like that's where he wanted to be.
Yeah, they
Right.
kind of turned their back on him. That
Well,
was kind of screwed time.
definitely the Bischoff era definitely screwed him up. So you're watching wrestling with your grandpa. You're talking about it constantly. You go off into hand-to-hand combat, little cage matches as well. What got you to double your toes into wrestling? What got you over to that area?
Um, I think I was so my son was 9 or 10, and I had a my daughter Vaughn was about 5 or 6, and I was a complete loser. I didn't have anything going. I mean, I barely was scraping by, or we were barely. I was working constantly, but I wasn't making good money. And I remember going to a career day when I was a kid, in like second, third grade, and my dad didn't show up because he didn't care. Which my dad was a great man, did a lot of great things. But for some reason he just wasn't keen on me. But he didn't show up, and I remember lying. I stood up in front of the class saying, "My dad's a secret agent, and my dad is, and I made a fool of myself. And I knew, as a kid, everybody knows you're lying, but you keep on going. Well, that
Yeah,
really
you stick with
embarrassed.
it.
Yeah, that really embarrassed me. So I kept going, man. I hope career day don't come for my son because they're gonna go, what's your dad do? And I'm going to be like, well, my day job, I'm weed eating apartment complexes. And at night, I'm doing this. I mean, I would have I had like 12 W-2s in just 1 year. I
Wow.
couldn't figure out shit. So then I got a really good job. And then my life kind of like started to really, I was growing up, and I was like 23. And I said, there's more to me. I'm very good at martial arts. I'm very good at doing stunts. I'm very good at fighting. I'm a great athlete. I think I'm pretty good. I need to figure out something, either get into movies or wrestling, because I really liked wrestling. And I had a buddy Rodney that really tried to push me into the wrestling thing. He's like, dude, you really need to do, because I used to do these like we would be hanging out in like their backyard and stuff, and I'd be like doing backflips off like propane tanks, doing
Oh yeah.
spinning kicks like 20. I'm not kidding you. I'd stand up on the back of these guys' porches. I would leap over the rail, do a spinning kick, and land and roll. I God gave me so many gifts, and everybody would always say, you need to do something with that, and it's funny, every Christmas video or every any video of me anywhere, I'm doing a standing sidekick. I mean, Bruce Lee was my hero. I'm doing a sidekick. I used to bet people I could kick ceilings, kick exit signs, kick all this, and I could do all of it. I did all of it. I mean, I can't tell you how many places in certain towns my footprint is still up on the ceiling. But people's like, man, you need to do something with that. And so I tried to get into wrestling. So what did I do? I got the yellow pages, and I figured, fuck, I just flip through and find wrestling. I went to the W's, and there was no wrestling. And I was like, well, what do you do now? Because this is what, 1991, 92. And then weird thing, my life kind of fell apart again. And a buddy of mine comes to me and says, hey, you got a camcorder? I go, yeah. He goes, there's a wrestling show and they need a guy to videotape. Can I use your camera? I go, yeah. And Cecil, the friend, he goes, you need to go and talk to these guys. And my life was so screwed up at the time. I go, I'm probably, when you're young, you think you're going to die tomorrow. I'm like, I probably won't be here for another 6 months, buddy. And I turned it down, and I didn't go. And then that's when, a couple years later, that's when my life started getting back together. And I go, dude, you need to figure something out. And then I looked in the yellow pages, and there was nowhere to look. And a friend of mine said, I think there's a club down in the city. And what he was talking about was Broadway, but he couldn't remember the name of it. And so I looked that up in the envelope or the yellow pages, didn't find it. I couldn't find anything, didn't know how to get anywhere, so I just gave up on it. And fate is people are not famous or heroes because they choose to be. Uh, you know, um, rarely does fate call upon one at his own choosing. I'm working, and I've given, and all the guys at the job I had, which I was a maintenance man for a school district, and it was great. I had a truck, had a phone, man. I was doing great. It was a great job, but I'm always kicking shit. I'm always jumping up and doing flips. Well, I'm always talking about wrestling. Well, one of the guys at work there is like, I call him like my second daddy because he's the one that taught me how to be a man. Because man, when I first met him, he's a real short guy. He got up in my chest a lot. He put me in my place so many times and told me your priorities are screwed up. You know, you don't know what. I mean, he really turned me into a man. But
Yeah.
one day he walks into the shop and he has a piece of paper. He goes, "Well, here you go, big guy." And in town, the town I lived in Pacific at the time. I hadn't lived in Pacific very long at that time, but I had just kind of moved there. He goes, "Here you go." And in Pacific at the Eagles was a show, which is Central States Wrestling. And it was Frank Reed. He was Central States Wrestling at the time. And he goes, "You always talking about wrestling and stuff. Go there and wrestle, you know, whatever." And it was fate, but my wife Val, she really had to talk me into going there because I don't know. You know, I always tell people when an opportunity comes that they work so hard to get to the door of their dreams and they even crack open that door, but they freeze and they run the other way. 9 times out of 10, people's dreams don't come true because of their own fears. So I was like, I don't think I'll go. Da, da. She's like, "No, you're going." So we go and it's in the middle of the parking lot. I'm like, this is cool. You know, a ring set up. They didn't have an entranceway. They were just coming out a door. They had the referee was doing music and reffing. Yeah, yeah. And I'm sitting there, and there was a security guy in front of me. He had blonde hair. You know, he actually looked like a movie star. But so I started talking to him. Oh no, he goes, "What federation you work for?" And I go, Federation. I'm not quite sure. You mean like Star Trek? You know, what are you talking about? And he goes, wrestling organization, wrestling. Well, who do you wrestle for? And I go, nobody. I'm not a wrestler. He goes, oh, well, you look like Kevin Nash. And I go, uh, maybe. Yeah, sure. Great. And I was like, hey, I was all I needed that day, but
Right.
he was LA Cats. This guy was LA. And I go, so are you a wrestler? He goes, I'm training. I've been training for about 2 years. I go, wow. You've been training. And then this young guy walks by, long hair, a real young guy. And I talking to him too. And I said, how long you been training? He's about 4 years. He's like 16 or whatever. His name was Jeremy Lightfoot. So I met those two guys and they thought I was a wrestler already. Well, then there was a woman that kept looking at me. And I guess who was the promoter kept looking at me too. And I was like, Val's like, you need to go talk to them. Cause I'm looking at all these guys and they're, how independent wrestling can be, and I couldn't believe, like, I didn't know this existed. I only knew of the TV. I didn't know there was like a
Yeah.
minor league.
Yeah.
I didn't know. And that was the first. I remember two guys. Well, I remember a lot of the guys, but the two guys that impressed me the most that day and Trevor Murdoch was on that show. Uh, um, but Brian James, who was really skinnier than he is today, was on that show, and Mark Morton, which was Marcus Mansfield, Every Lady's Fantasy. They impressed me with their match because Mark come out, this pick squeak guy. It looks like like a guy that works at H&R Block comes out and he's trying to be like the hottest guy in the world and he's saying all the women want him. And he told me, he goes, and I was in pretty good shape. He goes, you keep your fat ass in the seat or I'll knock you down. I was like, what but then I started to get the stick. I got what he was doing. And I was like, you know what? These people really hate him and they love that guy. I get what they're doing, So, finally, Val tells me, you need to go talk to the promoter. And well, the girl come over to me, which was Melanie, Frank's wife, and she said, what's your wrestling name and who do you work for? And I go, I already told these guys, I'm not a wrestler. I've never wrestled, but I would like to wrestle, She goes, well, you need to go talk to Frank because Frank's interesting talking to you. And Val had to talk me into going over there. And she actually went over and said I was an idiot and he needs to talk to you, but he's afraid to talk to you. So finally,
Oh
I
my
went over and
god.
talked to him. Yeah, dude. And Frank did the most effed up thing I ever had anybody do to me, but it's something I do to everybody. He goes, "How tall are you?" And I told him. And he goes, and I swear to God, I did this whole side kick, spin kick, jump. I said I can do all this stuff. Now I'm trying to sell myself.
Right.
And I said, I've done tough man. I've done some stuff. I'm not, martial arts, and since I was 6, all this kind of stuff, and he's like, I'm really impressed. You look like the Undertaker. And he goes, Kane started here, right? That very ring. And I was a huge Kane fan. Undertaker and Kane. Because this is 98. So I was so like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Kane started here. If it's good enough for Kane, it's good enough for me. So I go, and this is what he does to me. He goes, I'm going to call you. And he has a clipboard, and he writes my name, and he writes my number, and he freaking circles it like 8 times. And he was like, I can't wait to call you. I walked away. My shirt probably ripped open because I was so proud. I was like, that's great. I went to work the next day. I was giving my tools away. I'm like, guys, I'm not going to be
Oh
here
my
much
god.
longer. I'm going to be in the WWE in a year. I've been discovered. You're losers. All that shit. I was completely stupid. A week goes by, nothing. 2 weeks go by, a month goes by, 3 weeks. Dude, he never called me. 4 weeks, probably about 6 months went by. Never called me. I was like, son of a bitch, Well, then they come back to the old Walmart, and I was going there not to be in wrestling. I was going there to give this guy a piece of my mind because he really got my hopes up, So I walk in, and they're in the very back of this old Walmart in like the back room, and they got couches for chairs. There's only like 10 couches around. It literally looked like they moved junk out of the way and put the ring up.
Oh wow.
And I hear these boots clicking, walking towards me, and it was him. And I turn around and I go, you said you were going to call me. You never called me, and all this kind of stuff. And he goes, big smile on his face. I like people who are not afraid of me. I'm not a very intimidating person, but people say I am. And I really don't like when somebody doesn't take up. I like when someone will buck up to me. I like when someone will take my shit, but actually give it back to me. That to me, that impresses me. And he just stood there while I was really angry and with a smile on his look. And I just go, what's your deal? And he goes, I do that to everybody. If you wanted this, if you really, really wanted this, I knew you'd be here today and you would come with fire in your belly. And I go, yeah. He goes, are you ready to train after this? I go, yeah. He goes, you're going to do security for me, ain't you? And I go, yeah. Freaking idiot. So now I'm following this guy I don't even know who looks like Kenny Rogers' brother. And I'm completely in training, or completely in security mode. And I met Frankie, Johnny D and Billy D. They had a thing going on 3D. Trevor Rhodes was there. Trevor Murdoch was there. Anyhow, nobody showed up. It was me, my 2 kids, and my wife, and another guy with 2 kids. That's the only people who showed up, except for Butcher, Damian Blade, Bill Talley. I didn't know him, but I just saw this bald guy who looked like he just got out of prison, and he kept mean mugging me and looking over at me, and we never talked that day, never. But then he left, and Frank goes, you ready to train? And I didn't own any at the time. I didn't even own any tennis shoes. I had to go buy tennis shoes because all I had was work boots. Went into the ring with Johnny D, Trevor Murdoch, who had just been in the business for like 6 months too, not even that. I don't even know. Who else? I'm pretty sure Douglas O'Shea was there. But Johnny D taught me how to lock up. Well, the first thing he goes, I want you to learn how to do goes, what can you do? And I did my kicks and all this. And he goes, wow, okay. So then they taught me how to bump, and I took to everything like I have already done it. And they started calling me the machine. I did like 3 hours of them just putting me through the ringer. And body slamming me and all this stuff. And I just kept falling down and getting right back up, falling down and getting right back up. And Johnny, at one point, which I use this today at my dojo, this business is all about how fast you can get down and how fast you can get up, because nobody wants you to lay on your ass. And he goes, you got that good. And I kept going and going. Whatever they wanted me to do, I did. I think I went to the top rope that day. I did all kinds of stuff,
Wow.
and then I thought it was going to be like that forever, that they were going to train me up right. No one trained me shit. That was the only day. It was the only day, other than Frank put the ring up and Frankie D and Rage got me and Bill in the ring, and they first took me in, and they go, all right, take a bump and take this, take this bump and take this. I mean, they would beat the shit out of me. They were throwing me around, and then they're like, well, you need to backflip over the top rope. And I'm like, oh, I've never done that. They're like, we don't care, do it. So I flipped over the top rope, and they're like, can you do a backflip? I'm like, yeah. So I backflipped all of it. So, and they just put me through and they put a sawhorse in the ring, and I jumped over, ninja rolled. I mean, I did everything they asked me to do. I did it, and they just mercifully beat on me. Okay, fine. So I rolled out. Bill got in there, and they did try to do the same thing to him, but Bill was not the Bill was not able to do those things to the point to where they really, really, I had to talk him into not quitting. He really, really, they really, really did some. I used this also in my dojo, because that experience with me, I've learned this. I say, I've been in lots of dojos. I've had lots of masters. Some dojos I've walked out of, and I feel like I'm Bruce Lee. I feel like I can take on the world because they built me up in there. It's like special forces training. It's not about if you faint or get hurt or drop out. It's if you quit.
Right.
You got to tear you down, but in that tearing down, you didn't quit. That builds you up. So I tell people, I say, I walk out of dojos and I feel like I'm Bruce Lee or Superman. But I've also walked out of dojos and I felt like I suck. I'm the worst thing ever. He told me I sucked. He beat my ass the whole time. I'm never going to be any good. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going to go home and go to sleep and never wake up again. And in my dojo, I don't want anyone to walk out feeling down. I want them to at least walk out feeling up, because that day Bill was so upset. I didn't think he was ever going to. I thought it was going to ruin him,
Right.
And but anyhow, that was the last training other than Mark Morton showing me how to do an arm drag. Basically, me and Bill taught ourselves. With my martial arts background and judo, most of the falls in wrestling are judo falls. So it all came pretty easy to me. Like, guys, nobody did sunset flips. Maybe Brian James. Nobody did. Like, there was just a lot of things. Whatever I saw the wrestlers in CSWA not do, I would do. Like what I saw wrestle. I was like, why isn't anybody going to top and doing sunset flips off the top, or why isn't anybody walking the top rope, or why isn't anybody springboarding to the top, all that kind of stuff. And it's the ability. You have to have the ability. So I was already at 3 months. I was already in the ring, and I really didn't know what I was doing. And here's the funny thing too. Jeremy Lightfoot and LA Cash. LA had trained for 2 years, and Jeremy was training for 4 years. I ended up being both those guys' first match.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and in the first year I was in there, and it just, I don't know. It was just, I just took to it like water. The physical, I was really good at the physical stuff. Bill was really good at. We were great as a tag team because we really taught one another everything. I was really good at the physical stuff. I could do anything physically. Bill could get in there and hold an arm bar and look at the crowd and get him behind us. He was so good at like the psychology part of it. So together, because at first I was just undertaking it. I just pretended to be the Undertaker because it got over.
Right.
But Bill, he knew what to do out there. And he would tell me, hey, dude, before you punch somebody on like that second or third time, stop and do what Hulk Hogan did. Look at the crowd like, do you want to see this? And he goes, you'll get a lot more out of it. And he was right, And then I remember one time he's crawling to me and he's like, you know what you need to do? As he's crawling to me trying to tag, when I'm in there, you need to take your hand and hit the top turnbuckle to get the fans in it. And I'm like, why? And then I go in and I do some move, tag him back in. And then I do. He looks at me like, are you going to do that? What? And I start doing it, and the fans just like, and I was little by little getting it. The physical stuff came pretty easy to me, but I didn't understand. And most wrestlers today have been in the business 20 years, don't understand the psychology of it. There's a saying out there: when did you get it? When did you learn how to work? When did you get it? Well, most people, it takes you about 5 years to learn how to get it, and and you're not supposed to tell people, because actually I can sit there and tell you right now, and if you work for me, you hear me say it all the time, what it is to get it. It's very simple, but when I train now, I'm not going to waste time anymore. I'm going to tell you how to get it. It's easy. The psychology is easy. Bob Orton used to say it all the time. We drive all over the country, and he'd say all the time, good guy, bad guy shit. He's like, Searcher, come the fuck over here. Grab that motherfucker. But before you hit him, fucking look at me and say, you want it, Bob? That's psychology, because we're bad guys.
Yeah.
Bob was one of the best things that ever happened to me. But getting it, wrestling, it took me about a year or two. But hell, I'd already been a year into business. I was going to Memphis. I was going just about everywhere, all over the country. And I was wrestling so many stars. I couldn't believe it. And I never took a guarantee. A promoter, I would spit and it would land on the promoter and say, hey, I need you on such and such date. And back then we had the fanny packs in the book. I would go through probably 2 of the date books a year, trying to get all the dates. And I wrestled everywhere. I had a great career. I mean, I hear people talk about wrestling. I don't want nothing to do with wrestling. I loved wrestling. That's why I started. That's what I loved wrestling. I had a great career, man.
All right. So on that note, you said you from like a year in, you start going to Memphis. Was that Memphis Power Pro?
That was 2 years. Bishop Stevens, who was Atomic Dog at the time.
Yeah.
Well, it wasn't really him. It was him, but it wasn't. It was Carl Lawler. I had met Carl in spring. Okay, so Harley Race had started up. Well, Harley and Carl had started up World League Wrestling. Okay.
Yeah.
Which World Legion, it was actually not World League like it is today. It was actually Carl owned it. Okay. And I was brought in, and I think there was there was only like 1 or 2. Harley came into Rolla. We had a show at a flea market, Frank did. And Harley, that with BJ, his wife, and his stepson, and they watched the show, and Harley is looking for talent to bring to the federation. Right. And Harley watched the whole show, and Trevor was on it. Johnny D was on it. JD Hall, Marcus Mansfield, Dump Truck was there. I don't think he wrestled though. Just a bunch of the Jeremy Life, a bunch of guys. Harley picked me, and I wrestled the Hollywood stud, Alan Ward, and Harley picked me and Alan. He come up to me and goes, I think BJ said he's a lot like the Undertaker. I don't know if you want to. And Harley said every federation needs a guy like you. So. Wow. Oh, okay. So I went down to Eldon, that was the problem with that first time down in Eldon. Everything was great with Harley. Me and Harley we hit it off, and Harley was great. And then it just stopped. I was getting bookings everywhere, but I didn't hear anything from Harley. And I was like, what happened? And then I just was like, okay, whatever. And then finally I had it, I called him. I just said, man, I don't know what's going on. So I talked to Harley, and I said, Harley, this is Searcher. I don't know what happened. Why haven't you called me? What's going on? He goes, well, I can't afford the $2,000 to buy a contract out. And I'm like, I had to sign a contract for the job I had. I'm like, my job? What are you talking about? What contract are you talking about? He goes, well, the promoter you're working for told me you have a contract with him.
Oh,
and it would
my
take
God.
$2,000 for me to have you work for me. And I go, I have never signed a contract in wrestling in my life, Harley. That is not true. That is absolutely not true. So then I went back down, and that's when Trevor and them had been in there. They were in there like Alabama ticks. They were dug in there. Skippy was there, and we did like 3 or 4 hours. Dude, I've done, countless boot camps, countless training, countless. And I had never ever done 250 push-ups. I have never done like 250 sit-ups, and that's what we were doing down there. And I'm just sitting there going, why am I doing this exactly? And then Harley would go, and this is a true story, and I've talked to Trevor about it many times. We would get in the ring, and Harley would sit in a chair out by the wall. This happened, and they would shoot me off the rope, but they would go blah 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 blah, and I had no idea, what they were doing. And then I'm like, okay, and they were trying to sandbag me was what they were doing. Which, hey, this is a cutthroat business. That's what it is, And finally, Harley goes, I just want them to learn the way we wrestle, which I didn't understand that, but now I do understand what Harley was trying to do. And I understand what those guys were trying to do too at the time. But they wanted me to give up. Like, I got in this, like 3 guys started MPW, and there was kind of a war, and 2 guys left, and the 1 guy was left with MPW, and he kept looking to me to be Booker, and kept looking to me to be the number 1, main event. And so I was really heavily into that. And then now Harley and them wanted me to leave that and only work for them. And then I had all these, like Tim Lyle, I had all these like conventions, these comic book conventions. I met just about every star you could think of at these conventions, the cast of Dukes of Hazzards, Good Times. I met most of the Star Wars, because I'm the hugest Star Wars fan. I met I spent 3 hours with David Prowse talking, it's hanging out. Chewbacca, I tell that story about, it was terrible meeting Chewbacca, but anyhow, I met everyone you can think of on these, and I didn't want to give any of that up too, so I couldn't commit just to World League. And I felt like there was hard feelings, so I just left, and I just went and did my own thing. And then I went to Memphis Power Pro. That was in 2000. And I went there 6 months in a row. I would leave at 1:00 in the morning. Maybe it wasn't 6 months, but it was 3 to 4 months. But I would leave 1:00 in the morning, drive to Memphis. TV was at 10:00. I'd be on the dock of the TV station, and I would wait there. And they would usher us in, and you would say, hey, I go, I'm Searcher, and then Damian Blade would go, I'm Damian Blade. And then Mark, because it was me, Mark, JD, Rage, and I think that was it. And we were like, we're wrestlers. If you need us, let us know. And they would put us in the audience. So I sat in the audience for 4 or 5 months every Friday. Wow. And then I would just go there, and then I would go wrestle. I would be booked too. So I would leave out either from Memphis and go completely back through Missouri to go like to Indiana or wherever to wrestle. But I did not give up on that. We would go, and it dropped off. Guys dropped off. Then Randy Hale one time, Brandon Baxter and Randy Hale go, I don't know what happened, but there was a call sheet. After a while, there's a call sheet, and the guard would look at the call sheet and they go, Search, you ain't on it. You ain't on it. And I'm like, okay, like Kurt Angle was on it, The Rock, all these people, they would bring people in all the time. And you just sit there and go, I'll job to anybody. I don't care. I'll do anything, And one day, and I still have it to this day, I can send it to you. It was the Memphis Power Pro call list, and it said, interview with Bishop Stevens, and Brandon Baxter interferes. Searcher attacks. And then it said 45 seconds, Brandon Baxter 7, Blade, Searcher, 45 seconds, beat down, Bishop, go off air. I'm like, what? So I'm just like, so now I'm in the locker room, which there was where is the cafeteria of the TV station. And I'm like, this is great. And Jim Cornette was on the show, and Robert Gibson, and dude, that's a big thing about it. You can't mark out. Like I learned that
Right.
really quick. My first arena show, which is with Hammer, you know, if there's pictures of me with Honky Tonk, pictures with the Bushwhackers, pictures with Nikolai Volkov, everybody was on that show. All those I took pictures with in the back. And Bob Orton's like, hey, cut it out. What the fuck you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm not supposed to do that. He's like, are you a wrestler or a fan? I get you. So that was the last time I did that. So, you don't mark out then. But I will tell you, one of the greatest compliments me and Bill ever got was we standing there and we're dressed up, and Jim Cornette goes, that's some motherfucking wrestlers right there. That's what fucking wrestlers supposed to look like right there, brother. And I'm like, yes, sir. Thank you, sir. You're the best.
Right.
It was great, man. And then I got to go out there and I attacked. And I told Steve, I said, Steve, I don't want to do a clothesline. I want to really impress these guys. I want them to see that I can do something. It's my first time. It wasn't my first time on TV because I had been on TV in other states. But this is my first time, I thought, was because it's so close to the WWE, But I said, I want to do a spinning kick, like a wheel kick. And you duck that. He goes, no, man, keep it simple. And I'm like, okay. So I did that. I kept it simple. And if you see on the video there, when he gives me a rock bottom, he doesn't go to the stomach. He goes to one knee, which I jump. And he did tell me in the locker room, he's like, dude, jump really, really high. Don't make me look bad. And I'm like, yes, sir. I jumped really, really high. And when he come down, my bone, you have two bones in your shoulder. And this is your collar here. And this is connected to your arm. Well, that bone went boom like that. And it stuck out right up here. And so if you watch the video, when I'm rolling this arm and when I'm beating him down later on, you could tell, like Bill, we try to do a double clothesline, but I can't pick my arm up. I can't pick it up. So it looks so bad. And dude, every kick I was doing was it was so painful. Because what had happened was I got in the back and right after the rock bottom, and Bill goes, man, you kidding? It's great. And he goes, man, you landed. Robert Gibson goes, son, and I never knew Robert Gibson had a cross eye until he got real close to my face. He goes, son, that was a rough looking bump. I was like, yeah, it was. He goes, I thought you were dead. I was like, yeah, me too. But we go in the bathroom. I go, Bill, look at this. And he goes, man, a bone's out. And I go, get my deodorant and get yours. So Bill took the deodorant of his deodorant and mine, and he put it on the bone, and he hit that bone back into place. And then and then we taped it up. And then we come out of the bathroom, and I just sat there and waited. And waiting for that 40 minutes to go by, it just got worse and worse and worse. And then finally, we were all lined up to go run out and attack. And you watch that video, I can barely move. But I'm doing it. And you know what I did was we go back, and these guys want to stop. It's 7 hours, 8 hours to home. I keep saying it's not so bad. It's not so bad. It's not a big deal. I'm getting like almost like physically. I don't feel too much pain. I knew I was messed up because I could like physically feel like I wanted to throw up constantly. We went to a steakhouse. They wanted to stop and eat, and I just laid on the chair there, the two chairs. I just laid down. I said, and the lady's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, I'm fine. So we got all the way home, and then I went to work, and they're like, "Dude, you can't work. You're messed up," And so I went home, and then that Saturday, 1:00 in the morning, I went back down to Memphis, and they were interviewing the director of Beyond the Mat, and I stood there and talked to him he goes, "Are you Undertaker's brother?" And I go, "No." He goes, "You look a lot like him." I go, "Yeah." I go, you ought to do a movie about the independents because it's kind of a messed up scene." He goes, "You know what? I may do that if this movie works out. I'll do that." And then he went out and did an interview. Then Randy Hale comes to me, and he goes, "Hey man, they told me you're hurt. They told me you're really, really hurt. So we're going to use these guys." And it was Men on a Mission. Mo.
Oh,
And Mo had replaced, and I think it was Woofy D. Woofy D puts his hand on my shoulder and he's like, man, just heal up and come back, and all kinds of shit. And I'm just like, yep. So about 2 months I was out of commission, which was supposed to take 6 months. I was actually supposed to get surgery, but I went to a specialist and of the Cardinals. And he said, nah, you don't have to get surgery. He goes, it's a very common injury in football. When you get tackled and you slide on the AstroTurf, it pulls that shoulder down, or hockey players when they hit the glass. He goes, it's very common. He goes, a lot of those guys don't do anything for it. They wrap it up and keep going. So that made me feel like a big puss. So, yeah. So 2 months, I was back in the ring in Chicago. And it's never ever really healed the way it still sticks up. That bone will still stick. It still stick. But I can, when I used to work out a lot, I was still strong over there and all that. But that's just one of 1,000. My pelvis has been cracked several times. My sternum's been cracked. I've had every injury you can think of, but you just keep going.
right. Definitely. All right. So trying to follow you around here. So Power Pro, I heard you did a little bit of stints in ECW.
ACW, I even handed flyers out for ECW. Here's another great gift God gave me. In the wrestling world, I look like somebody. Every locker room I've ever walked into, some wrestler. It just happened to me in Poplar Bluff a couple months ago in October with Buff Bagwell. I'm standing on the floor. We did a show with Chris Powell down there at the Black River Coliseum, which I wrestled for ECW there. But at the Black River Coliseum, and I'm standing there in Buff Bagwell, and I kept telling everybody, I wasn't a big Buff fan. I never did like Buff. I don't like Buff, and I've never been around Buff. I don't know Buff. I'm standing there, and Buff he's talking to people, and I go, Buff, how you doing? I own the ring and or what have you. And then he stops, and all my guys around, they can tell you this, that he goes, man, I know you. I've been on a show with you in the locker room. And he starts going, and I go, wait a minute. Yes, I had been in a locker room with him. I didn't wrestle him, but we had worked together, or not worked together, but have been on a show together. And I didn't even remember it. But that's the gift. None of the gifts I have also is that wrestlers think they've known me and they've wrestled me already. Jack Victory in ECW, the first time I walked up, Jack Victory goes, hey, man, how you been? Man, we had a great match in Kentucky.
That's awesome.
Yes, we did. Tracy Smothers did the same thing. Tracy would tell these fucking stories. If you ever been around Tracy Smothers, you think I talk a lot. Tracy was just, oh, man, motherfucker, all this kind of shit. And he would go, Search, you remember you were there? Search, you remember that time? I'm like, yeah, man, that was great. I never was fucking there. I never, ever. But everywhere I would go, and man, Chajir, there was everybody. The only one I thought in ECW that was kind of standoffish, which now I understand, was Tommy Dreamer. He was very standoffish. Nova was super great. Kid Cash was super great. Rob Van Dam is awesome. Me and Rob Van Dam and Booker T drove to a WWE show one time. Booker T, and this is a true story. Chris Powell was there too, and Ben Oliver. But Rob Van Dam's in the front seat. Booker T, I'm sitting here. Booker T's in the middle, and we just all had a blast. But man, I can't really tell that story. Can I? It just has something to do with Booker T rolling something.
You can say whatever you like.
On your
Okay.
You told it on your
I don't
podcast.
smoke. I have never smoked pot in my life. I have never smoked. I don't smoke pot ever. I've never done any drugs, anything. But Rob Van Dam and especially Booker T, they did it a lot. And Booker is got the pot on this book, and he's rolling, getting it in the paper, and he's rolling, and it's a Sunday school kids book, and it's a picture of Jesus. And I swear, I look at Booker. I go, Booker, do you realize you're rolling a joint on Jesus's face? And he looks at me and goes, man, I'm going to hell. I'm like, you just might go to hell, man. Rob always called me, he'd like, man, you, for a big guy, you rip me off really good. Cause I ripped off Rob Van Dam a lot. But he's like, man, if you weren't such a mark, you would get somewhere in this business. You're just,
oh, damn.
And that's it. Didn't like somebody. I remember one time standing with Rob, and some wrestler came up and said, "Rob, did you really say such and such or whatever about me? And did you really? Why would you do that?" And Rob goes, "I don't remember saying that." He goes, "But it sounds like something I'd say about you, but I don't remember doing it." So I remember that night, Rob, like he had his hand. We drove out of the arena. And Rob had his tape, and there's all these people out there. And he rose up and he goes, "Watch this! I swear to God, it's a true story. I swear to God." He goes, "Watch this, man. I'll show you the power," or whatever, you know. And he gets the tape and it's rolled up. He goes, "You want to watch this, man? This will be on eBay for $200. Watch this." And he goes, "Robin," or the whole fucking show, and he throws his tape to the crowd. And just as the crowd is looking at us, and just about to throw the thing, another car comes up. So everybody turns around. One guy gets it right in the back of the head. What the hell was that? He's laying on the ground. And we're like, "Oh yeah, eBay, right? Gotcha, man. It's going to be on the ground. No one knows what the fuck it is." Well, yeah, man. It just that night, and I tell you, I've said this many times to my trainees. That night, Rob wrestled. That night, I can't remember where it was, but that night he wrestled Jeff Hardy. And for all the Jeff Hardy, that's why I book house shows. You know, I've told you this before. Most bookers and independents, they never really worked for big companies that really had bookers and agents and producers. They only really know what they saw on TV. You know, they only know how to book off of a Raw or pay-per-view. So they book like that. They think you got to have all that stupid shit. Well, I had the opportunity of wrestling on so many companies' house shows where you got to tell the story from the beginning of the end. When the bell rings, and when the bell rings at the end, you have to have a good story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end to it, because it's not TV. It's a house show. That's what I wrestled on all the time. So I book house shows. You know, when I book it was simple. One of the biggest things I was told was, never book anything that a 10-year-old cannot understand. So that's what I did. But Rob and Jeff had to me personally, the greatest house show match I ever seen. You just talk about two guys that really knew how to work the crowd and how to do spots, but then also how to just work the crowd. Fantastic. And I've seen lots of people do that. I seen Dingo one night wrestle Balls Mahoney. And Balls Mahoney and Dingo, I think it was in DeSoto. That was one of the best matches I ever seen in my life. And no one ever really says Balls Mahoney had the best match I ever seen.
Right.
All these guys could work. It's just a lot of them on TV, you don't get a chance. Like I tell my guys down there, we're going to do 1-minute matches, 2-minute matches. Because on TV, you know, you got to get, like, the longest match I ever did on TV is 4 minutes. That's what you do. You have to be able to get in there, get yourself over, but more importantly, get your opponent over. You have to show them right off the bat who's the good guy and who's the bad guy. You can't. If you're leaving them guessing, they're not going to pay attention. They got to know right away who's good, who's bad, and you can't lose them. And it doesn't always take a bump to lose them. Or to win them over. You don't have to do a bump to get them over. Tell a story. An arm, neck, back, a leg. People will understand simple stuff. I mean, most independent wrestlers don't know any of that. They do hot spots. They do, I one of the worst things is a guy comes out and says, "I'm from California and I'm rich and I just flew in here." There's 40 fucking people here, pal. You're not getting paid shit. You spent $1,500 to fly here. You're the dumbest. You're the dumbest one in this room.
So your stint in ECW, that was back when WWE owned ECW then?
Nope. It was my stint in ECW was about a month and a half. It was right at the end. It was absolutely a few shows. It was when it was done, and all of them was hanging on. They were they still believed Paul Heyman was going to, like, here's for anyone out there doesn't believe or understand this. You know who got talent in ECW? The referee. That's the guy that contacted me. That's the guy I sent my tape to, and he told me, he goes, dude, you're gonna have to have lightning come out your ass to get on with us. And I did a match before a show, and the guy called me a couple weeks later, and he goes, dude, I guess you got lightning coming out of your ass because we can probably do something with you. I just did a few things with them. I do say I like the ECW stuff and all that, but it was so depressing. It was because I really liked the ECW. I thought it was really good, but people really don't know how disorganized pro wrestling is, even at that level. It was pretty, because like you feel like you've made it, like you feel like you're one of the biggest, and there's nothing. You're not getting paid. Everyone's in a bad mood. You could feel the vibe of the crowd. You can feel how things. That was to tell you the truth, I wish that stuff never happened, because I was very happy being the road warrior out there on the road wrestling, at armories and wrestling, older guys that from the 80s and mid 90s. That was depressing. That really was depressing. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a whole bunch of stories about how the ECW ended and how a lot of people wasn't getting paid, and they really felt betrayed by Paul Heyman, especially since he was still on TV, being in the WWE at that point.
yeah, but he's got to pay you got to make money. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Money. That's another thing with me about wrestling. I didn't care about getting paid. I didn't, because I would have paid them, and that's a Memphis thing. How much you want to get paid, and then I'd go, well, whatever you can, and you get handed $10-20. You drove 7-8 hours, but if you go, well, I would like to have $100, I didn't really make any decent money until I started traveling with Bob Orton, and then Bob got paid, and then Bob would get me paid. So, because Bob probably did more for me than him, and Carl probably did more for me than just about anybody, and all my opportunities and all that kind of stuff, But I made my own way most of the time, and that's what I don't understand. These guys, like I'll look at somebody and they go, "Where's your training center?" And I go, "Catawissa." He goes, "Well, that's like almost an hour from me, dude. I drove to Michigan to Coldwater, Michigan, to train with Dan Severn, just to train. I mean, like I said, going to Memphis, I don't understand. If you're going to learn the craft, you should be willing to try. And that's another thing. Tony Atlas told me, he goes like, and you got to have your own car. You got to have your own way. Don't bring your wives. Don't bring your girlfriends. Ride yourself. Prove to them that you're legit, and Ronnie Garvin, dude, Ronnie Garvin, I'm not going to say who it was, but a guy came in with me, because the guy, was with me, but he came in the back with me in the back, and I'm sitting there, and Garvin goes, "Who's your boyfriend?" He's like, my boyfriend. He's like, "Well, what's he here for?" I mean, is he your manager? Is he your whatever? And I knew not to say he's just a friend. I'm sitting right, Ronnie Garvin and Rode staring at me, and I'm going, I know not to say, "Hey, it's my buddy," because you're going to look like a smart,
Right.
So I'm just like, no, he does a lot more than you think. He helps out me, helps out Bob, and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, also, he's a fish. And I'm like, oh, you can be whatever you want. Yeah, that's what he is, So, you know what a fish is, right, in kayfabe?
I'm assuming just a buddy that does everything for you.
No, it's a fan of pay for anything. Like a lot of, Owen Hart would he wouldn't stay in hotels. He'd find a family and friend them in every town, and he would stay at their houses, so he wouldn't have to pay for it. Or you would find, hey, oh, you're my favorite wrestler, as I'm walking out. Really? You guys want to go to dinner? Yeah. And then you go and I was one night, the Bushwhackers fish. I end up probably spending $150 in beer on them before I realized they were screwing me over. We ordered pizza and they ate all the pizza. They're like, dude, this pizza's really good, you know. It's like, so.
Yeah, the modern day version is a simp.
Well, that's a new one. Yeah. The kayfabe is another thing. When guys start talking to me in kayfabe and no fans are around, I always go, "What the fuck is wrong with you? I don't need kayfabe. There's nobody around here. You know, this is my shoot. This is my shoot job. What do you mean shoot job? I mean, yeah, I know if we're got fans around us, but you know, like me and Frost, we work together. We talked kayfabe. We were at the juvenile detention center today, doing a job there, and there was people around us, and we were talking. I was installing some security cameras, and the security cameras did not work. The these brand new cameras, it was not working. I go, hey man, this gimmick is not getting over. We need to take this shit home. And he's like, all right, you know. So we packed it. We didn't want all those people to know that there's no cameras watching what we were doing because they were supposed to have cameras, but. Yeah, kayfabe. That's another thing. Is sign. I mean, that makes you. You know, there's a couple things that make people marked. You know, when you've been in the business a long time, one of them is using kayfabe at the wrong time. I was told not to do that. You know that it's just, and it's this business is. It depends on. We asked Gary Jackson about that stuff. You know that those are the kind of guys you need to listen to. You know, don't listen to a guy named Johnny Trash Jack who's never done anything. Listen to a guy that's been somewhere and done something.
All right, so to continue with your journey, so ECW, did you do any like WCW dark matches or WWE dark matches or?
I never. No, I did. The most I did was Memphis Power Pro, and they would. And then after a while, they would send me places. They were like, "Hey, you'd be real good here." Or one of the wrestlers would go, "Hey, man, you know, I got this. You know, I got a match, and I'd rather take a match, and I'll take you." No, I never did a WWE dark match. I never did it. I never got anywhere near WCW. Wait, that's not true. I'm sorry. I did go to WCW when they were at the Dome, and Bishop was in the back, and Bishop kept telling me, you know, to come, you know, like first we had us up, and then he had me move me down, and then all of a sudden I'm in the back, and what was his name? The actor that had the belt, David Arquette.
David Arquette.
He is walking backwards and forwards because he's about to go wrestle, and he's really nervous, and he's got the belt. And Steve goes, David, this is a real great guy, great wrestler. I want to get him in, you know, business when they, you know, whatever, meet him. And that guy was one of the nicest guys in the world. I mean, he was just so nice, and I did not like him at all. I didn't like what they were doing with that. I thought that was wrong. But meeting him, he was very nice guy, very nice guy. That was the closest. Oh, and I scared to death out of Sonny. I turned real quick, went somewhere, and she's right there, and her and Candido, and her eyes got really, really big. And that's my extent story of WCW, you know. So I never did anything for WCW. I was too busy with. I did TV for MPW. I was writing, booking. I was in the opening match and the main event. I was training. You know, I worked out 3 nights a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. I trained people. The weekends I wrestled. Sundays, if I didn't have a match, I would train people. Then I was writing, I was booking, and I was producing the shows too. I bought the programs, I cut the shows up, I edited the shows, I did everything. I made the flyer, just like today. I do everything. But back then it was really bad, you know.
What promotion was that for?
That was a Midwest Powerhouse Wrestling. That was MPW. We were on Channel 18. And it was a charter cable, and I did that then I had my motorcycle accident, and then I was out for 2 years in wrestling, and then but if I didn't have that, my wife tells me all the time, if I didn't have that motorcycle wreck, she's like, you'd either be dead or we definitely wouldn't be together, because all it was wrestling, and work, wrestling. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. You get threatened with a whole bunch of stuff from the wife because my wife, didn't like wrestling at the beginning, hated it. Bobby's was the same. But now we're to the point where all the kids are older, and grown up, can do their own thing. So now she enjoys it more because now it's more like not a vacation, but unless we're staying over somewhere and doing the show. But she likes it now, so she's all into it. But at the beginning, she didn't like it, because going through the training, at Broadway, it's Monday through Friday. And then if the shows were there, you were expected to be there, to help out with the shows. So now you're looking at 6 days a week. So it got a little crazy. And then, when you first start off, you want to wrestle everywhere and anywhere. So now you're looking at the rides without the wife, working, hopping 5 people into a car to try to get to the show so you can all split the gas money. So
Yeah.
yeah, the beginning. But I tell my students to this day, I said, that's what you got to do. You got to spread your wings and fly. You all need to hop in a car, go somewhere. If there's 5 of you, one of you try to get your foot in the door, and then you try to bring in, the others. And that's kind of what my guys are doing. I mean, not to toot the horn for Brandon. Of the Top Guns, but Brandon gets his foot in the door in Memphis, and then he takes his tag partner Joey with him. Gets his foot in the door in Ohio. Now he's taking Joey up there with him. So, and that's how it's supposed to work, Um, but there's really no money in the beginning, so mainly you got to have a really good job or something to fall back on to help support you. God, yeah, because me and Bobby, we both work for the promoters, the handshake, the hot dog. I always tell the story about expired McDonald's coupons in my envelope. Um, but yeah, I wouldn't
Is
have
that
it any
the,
other way. That's how you
is
got to
that the
learn.
worst? Is that the worst way you've ever been paid?
Besides not being paid and driving, 3 hours out of the way, yeah.
Pizza
The
farm.
worst? What was it?
We did that at the pizza farm.
That was for Frank Reed there.
Well, that was, yeah. I got paid in Goofy Golf once. So
Goofy
I'm
golf.
not kidding you. We did a Friday and Saturday shot at these fairs. They were paid shows, and I know they were paid were pretty damn good. So we wrestled that night, and the next day the promoter says, "Hey man, let's all go down to Goofy Golf," and we're a bunch of fucking wrestlers. We're like, Goofy Golf sounds great. So we're all playing Goofy Golf. I mean, we're all having a blast. Everybody's like molesting the tigers and the alligators and shit. We're just having a blast. So I go over to the promoter and I say, "Hey man, so what kind of pay is the guys?" Because they keep asking me, what kind of pay, they get. And he goes like, "What? This is the pay." I'm like,
Oh my goodness.
what are you talking about? He goes, "I paid for the golf, Goofy Golf," and I was like, wow. This is a Ghostbuster moment because our Ghostbuster 2 moment where they at the very beginning it starts where they're like, like they're going to a call, but it's just a birthday party and the kids don't even. I thought He-Man was going to be here. They didn't. Buster. So I was like, wow, that's amazing. Now I can tell everybody I've been paid in Goofy. I just walked away, paid in Goofy Golf. Yes.
I don't know, the McDonald's coupons that you couldn't use because they are already expired. That was pretty bad. I would have
That
chose
is
the
pretty
Goofy
bad.
golf.
Actually, yeah, the Goofy Golf wasn't too bad. What's the weirdest thing a fan ever gave you? I have a great story for that too. What's the weirdest gift a fan ever gave you guys?
I don't know. I've got a bunch of canvases that fans have made. Um, Cookies, during Christmas time. Posters. But
So toys. Little girl
yeah,
gave me a toy.
right.
What kind of toys?
It was like a little
Uh,
cat figurine.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
just stupid things.
Excellent.
Yeah, but all great to me. I'll take anything from a fan. But what was yours?
I was working and I was driving a dump truck, and all day I was getting asphalt. And every time I had to go and they load the truck, and then I would go up and sign the paper and come back. Last load of the day. The guy this is the last load of the day. And he goes, "Hey man, don't worry about it. This is on me, champ. Searcher, you're my favorite wrestler, so you can have it." And so I walked out going, that guy just gave me a ton of asphalt because I'm the champ. So a ton of asphalt. I got a ton of asphalt free.
What was the asphalt for you and your family though that you were using?
No,
Or the job.
no, no. And
Gotcha.
I went, you know what? I went back, just like with the family, and you guys probably know this too. How many times did you just have the greatest weekend? You were either the greatest heel or the greatest baby. The whole town loved you. You were just over. You made money. You feel like, this business is make me feel pretty thing.
Right.
Dude, when I would stand in the locker room and everyone would be like, man, we're just happy you're here. We're just, man, it's so cool that you're here. You are so good. And when you walk through the curtain and they look at you like an alien and they're just like, dude, it's so great. I can't wait to wrestle you. And it's an ego boost. You really like, man, I'm really somebody. Then you go home and the kids are like, can you take trash out? And your wife's like, I don't want to hear about your weekend because I sat here and did dishes all week. They tear you down. So I go back to the job and I go, yeah, they gave me that asphalt because I was the champ, and they all laughed at me. Who cares? You're a champ. Who cares about that stupid wrestling? So.
Oh, that's awesome.
You know what you got, Texan?
What's that?
You got one of the hardest things to get that I tell people all the time. If you really want to get over and really be something in this business, you got to have the it factor. And the it factor is that you may not even be a good wrestler. You may not even have the greatest body, but for some reason, when you walk out the entranceway, people pay attention. People pay attention, and whatever you're selling, they're buying. And you have that. You have that. And when I first met you, when we did that movie thing down there was a vibe about you that, I don't know, we took to one another pretty quick,
We did.
So,
Yeah. And that was the first time I ever met you.
Yeah.
I've told the story once, maybe twice or a couple times. But so Bishop Stevens was doing the Ventures of Salem Tusk. And a friend of mine, and Bobby knows him, Cecil, Phil E. Blunt, called me up and said, hey, this is happening. Bishop, why don't you come with me? And Tommy Riggs was there, and you were there. And, so we're all kind of out of our element, but still, this was really cool as fuck because they closed down the City Museum for this. So we had free roam of the City Museum. And, of course, we're all wrestlers. So what does wrestlers do? We talk about wrestling. And then that's when you told me that you had a promotion. And I told you, I work for Broadway, I work for SICW, so I don't know if I'll ever get down there. But yeah, I ended up coming down, and I know the Texan hasn't been on your show in a while, but I still show up and as a fan and come down and like Saturday, I wasn't on your card, but
You're busy.
I know, but I still did show up, and there was a fan that recognized me and said, "Hey, why weren't you on here?" I said, "I just come by and to give support for everyone,
That's right.
And
I know. That's right.
so it was pretty cool. But
And we miss
yeah,
you. We can't wait for you to be back.
yeah. But it was definitely cool. Nothing really happened of the Salem Tusk things. I hear every 6 months, it's going to be turned into a mini series, and then like 6 months later, finally got the green light for it to be a movie. But that's wrestling right there because I've had this documentary, cool ass documentary. It was on like the independent festival scenes. One festival kept going up. Invited a whole bunch of people out to finally watch it. Everyone fucking loved it. Haven't seen it. Hasn't come out. I talked to the guy. He goes, "Oh, eventually I'll release it on YouTube and stuff." And it's been a few years, so. But you always get this small stuff that you like, so cool, and then like nothing happens of it, and then some happens, it's so cool, and then at least that's
All
what's
right,
happened to
Texan.
me.
If you want to feel cool here, I just got on IMDb, went to the Steampunk Conventions at Salem Tusk. You go to full cast, and you are listed under stunts.
Yeah. I've had people tell me
Looking
that.
at it right now.
Hey,
Yeah.
Searcher,
Yeah.
one thing I'm proud of, though, even though it was just little scenes, you died, Tommy died, Cecil died.
Oh
I was
God.
the only one that survived. So if there's a part 2 to it, I'll take the part 2.
That's right.
Hell,
You remember that?
I was able to go in, and it took me hours, but I found the trailer for it, the sneak peek trailer for it, and it's on
Oh
our
yeah.
page.
Yeah.
You go back a year and it's on there. It took forever,
Are we
but I
on there?
found it.
Are we on there?
You are.
Yeah, you are.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think Cecil might be too. But at the end of the shoot, you left early, but we have a full picture of everyone that was involved.
Yeah.
But yeah, you had left early. But Trevor Murdoch was in there, of course, and then all the other wrestlers besides Bishop Stevens. Um, but yeah, it was something very cool.
Steve has done so much. Steve doesn't get the credit he deserves. He has helped and done so much for so many people. And like Steve, this is a true story. Years ago, I was on a show with Steve. It was a Saturday and a Sunday, and that Friday and Saturday. And that first night, I go, "Hey, Steve, how you doing?" He goes, "Oh man, pretty good, pretty good. How you doing? Doing good, doing good." And we wrestled. And then the very next night, we're in the locker room. And once again, it's just me and him again. And I swear to this true story. I go, "Hey, Steve, how you doing?" And he must have been in a bad mood. He goes, "Man, I just saw you last night. Do you really think anything happened between last night and tonight?" No. And he turned around and walked away. And I was like, what a dick.
What a
But he always was very nice to me. Like I said, he's done so much. He doesn't get the credit. And I always say, Steve, you need to do a seminar, not about wrestling, but even though he's a great wrestler, but he needs to do a seminar about how to self-promote yourself. Because Steve he doesn't get the credit he deserves for getting his name out there, his likeness out there, and he's always professional. He is one of the most professional guys. He raised $1,000 for a guy that was doing camera for us. Steve didn't have to give that money back. People were throwing money at Steve, and he gave every bit of that to Ronnie. Because there's so much about Steve that he gets a bad rap on, because when you're young, and Steve was very high strung, he was jacked up, man. He wasn't the nicest guy at times, but this is a man's business, and if you can't take it, then you shouldn't be in it. That's a big problem with the business today. There's a lot of people in the business that probably shouldn't be in the business, but
I just
Steve.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, Steve is just a great guy. No, Steve is just a fantastic guy.
Yeah.
Deserves more than what he gets.
Definitely. And I've not a bad thing to say about Steve. Because he was actually, him and his work brother, Kevin X, how they were the brothers for GCW. Those were the first two guys that Kevin was their champion, and he was greeting everyone at the door as we were coming in. And I wouldn't say he was literally trying to greet the people at the door. He was more or less just sitting on the steps going into the door, really relaxed and just chilling. And we were like, my first thing was, oh man, that's the champion, and he's just right there. But no, very cool people.
Well, thing about Kevin, most people don't know or give credit to, is Kevin was the cameraman in the Hell in a Cell match when Kane made his debut. The Undertaker and Shawn Michaels, Hell in a Cell, the first one. Kevin Sharp was the cameraman that got beat up.
Yes.
And every time I hear Jim Ross go, that man's not an athlete. He's got a family. I'm like, have you seen Kevin? He's jacked. He's an athlete. So,
Right. Right.
but he doesn't get the credit for that. That's another guy that doesn't really get the credit for the things he's done and the talent he had. So
Yeah. Definitely. I kind of lost where I was going with that story, but
well, about people shouldn't be in the biz. You were going to
yes,
where, yeah,
yeah.
Tissue
So
paper guys.
I was just saying this last week on our podcast that I have that sense in some of the trainees that we train. You can just tell right away the ones that are not going to be able to hang. And of course, they drop off as their training goes, or sometimes they don't come back after the first day. But you can see the ones that really thought, oh, we love the business, we're so much fans, we can do this, and then they realize reality hits, and then they fall away. But yeah, same aspect. Even with the independent wrestlers who actually make it and go to different shows. I see the little. Sometimes you can tell the ones you just stay away with because they're always pissed off or always depressed or whatever. But you can see it in the very beginning of the guys too. And I just wanted to point that out that because you're a trainer, I'm a trainer, and you can just kind of sense that. Oh wow, that's how you want to be spoken to as you might as well leave.
yeah,
If you can't handle me yelling at you, and not the way that I was yelled at, during my training, because I spoke about this last week. They beat you down to see if you were going to come back the next day, and I try not to do that with my students. So I'm not. It takes a lot for me to say, no, dude, you're really fucking this up. You better fucking learn this right and start doing it right. It takes me to a point before I start doing that. And some of them just can't handle it. But
yeah, it's tough to train. Like, I don't charge for my training. My training is completely free. You don't give me money, but what you do is you pay your dues. You have to flyer, you have to help promote, you have to set up and tear down. That's the deal. I don't want money from you. I'm making money. I make money. I have, I don't do wrestling because I need the money. I do wrestling because I love wrestling and I love watching those kids. We got all kinds of kids standing up watching shows. That's what we want. I want to save wrestling. So I don't need money from trainees. What I need is the ability for you to get the word out, because you can have we do 600 flyers every show. 600 flyers. I've seen threads with federations that, have we flyered good? Well, I did 25 flyers. I think that's pretty good. And then we got social media. No, man, that's just not enough. I've had 2 shows that's not sold out. This last year, I only had 2 shows that weren't sold out, and I didn't promote those. Those weren't my shows. There were other shows that I did for other people. I believe you can be the greatest wrestler or federation in the world, but if nobody knows about it, you're wasting your time. So I get more money and more whatever out of the trainees by not charging them for training, because by them flyering and promoting and stuff, they make me 10 times more money than if I got 50. Because here's the deal. I tell them another thing too. Most people, schools, and I know you guys don't do this, but I know a lot of schools that they'll make you pay 100, 500, 1,500, and the first day they are putting you through the ringer because they want you to quit. They don't want to train you. I've seen this 1,000 times. There'll be like 10 guys, and 2 guys will have like a body and already kind of get it. And the trainers will focus on those 2 guys because they're easy, because they're already basically trained. And the other guys, they won't give a shit one. I've come up with some of the best wrestlers I ever had. The guys that everybody said, that guy's never going to make it. That guy can't do it. That guy can do it if he has the heart. I don't care what your body looks like or your physical aptitudes. It's your heart. And if you're willing to shut your mouth, I'm always saying, if you want to be heard, speak up. If you want to be seen, stand up. But if you want to be respected and learn something, shut the fuck up. I will train you. And it's just so hard to get guys. They watch TV, they watch the WWE. That stuff's not going to get over in crowds that we're at.
Right.
They don't know how to. Texan, how many times you've been on a card and guys are out there doing bumps? Like Scott Hall said it best. They're getting the bumps over. They're not getting the match over.
Yeah.
They don't even pay attention to the crowd. They don't care about the crowd. And it's really hurt wrestling. It really has. And you know what's happening? I have built up my territory over here pretty good to where I have guaranteed almost always a pretty good sized crowd. The problem is you have shit bums come over here with their shit bum fucking shows, and they kill my territory by putting on a crappy show. But they get that crowd because the crowds don't really, oh man, ACW is really great. So I imagine this is going to be good too. They go and pay $10, $15, $20 for these crappy shows. And they go, ooh, I just dropped $100 on that. That was terrible. And I don't want to ever see wrestling again. Then I lose fans.
Yeah.
My message to all these people is you don't belong. Most of these people don't belong in the business. You don't know what you're doing. You've been in it for 10, 20 years and you're still not successful. You've never made more than $1,000 a year? You don't make any profit? Get out of it. Go pick up goofy golf. Go pick up something else because you're not good at this. You need to realize you are not a wrestler. You're not a booker. You're not a promoter, and you're not a tough guy. None of you. So you need to get out because the real guys will stick into it. Like I was talking to her just Saturday night. The man on his deathbed would probably be setting up shows. He just doesn't stop. And he will keep going and going and going. But his biggest thing is quality. You got to have quality. And you got to take it serious. This is not a weekend warrior thing. That's the worst attitude to have when it comes to professional wrestling. And you know what? I never liked the guy, but you know what's wrong? I'm going to say this. You know what's wrong with wrestling today, WWE and AEW? I can tell you 100% what's wrong with wrestling today. And if you're in the business, if you're smart, you're going to go, oh, my God, you're right. 100%. You just figured it out. But I didn't figure it out. It was one of the worst wrestlers I ever seen. Ahmed Johnson. You know who that is from the WWF? Yes. One of the most disliked guys in the business.
Yep.
If you go, he did an interview recently, and the guy asked him, he goes, what do you think's wrong with, WWE is don't make money on wrestling. WWE used to survive on house shows, folks. That's where they made millions of dollars first on house shows. Now they're a TV corporation. They're merchandise. They're not making all the millions and millions of dollars from the wrestling. It wouldn't happen. Tony Khan, he's a billionaire. His daddy's got billions of dollars. There's hardly anybody in the crowd. Dude, wrestling ain't the best it's ever been. No, it is not. If you think that, you seriously live in a fantasy world. The problem with wrestling today, they all look the same, all the same. You got Norman Smiley down in Florida training the WWE people. Norman never got over with a shit. I don't understand why you would ever do that. But anyhow, that's just my opinion. Here's the goddamn deal. The guy from I guess said his name. What the hell was his name?
Ahmed Johnson.
Ahmed Johnson said it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, he's absolutely right. They got rid of the jobbers. The jobbers used to be guys come in and they would job, but they would find the talent that way. Every single legend, everyone from Eddie Guerrero to Scott Hall, every one of them started out as jobbers. They just got an opportunity to be in there and wrestle. And that's how they found real wrestlers, because these guys would pay the cost to get in the ring. The guys that go to the WWE and AEW now and all that stuff, they wouldn't work. They wouldn't travel the hours and hours and on the road constantly and get not paid and just beat up and all that. They wouldn't do that. So they don't have the right attitude. They don't realize, well, wait a minute, it's my responsibility to make money. It's my responsibility to get my opponent over and myself so this promoter makes more money, so I make more money, so my merchandise sells. They don't have to do that. They come straight out of that school down there, are finger painted wrestlers with the same look. I mean, I love Jordan. I met Jordan Grace. I saw her wrestle in Tennessee. One of the sweetest, nicest girls, and just the hugest fan of Jordan Grace. She showed up in the WWE. She didn't even look the same. And I'm just like, is that really what? Like on my shows, I tried to have a wrestler that everyone in the audience can relate to. You know, we have big ones, small ones, in shape ones, good looking ones, ugly ones. Someone's always going to go, I relate to that guy.
Right.
I don't know who relates to a Brock Lesnar. Who relates to what Jordan Grace looks like now? There's no real connection anymore, because when you used to see a jobber walk in the ring and he kind of looked like you, but he's in there wrestling, it really, really made you invest in the wrestler, and you cared. Some of the greatest stars in the world did never dressed or look like what the WWE looks like today. You know, so and but I'm notorious for hating new wrestling. I don't like it. It's just I don't watch it, never have, and it's not my cup of tea. But it doesn't mean it's not great, because people love it, and I'm not gonna try to change anybody's mind. If they love it, great. I'm just saying those companies used to survive on house shows alone. They made lots of money, and they couldn't do a young guy once told me. He goes, "Oh, I understand, why they treat you like crap, and it was so hard to get into business, because they wanted to make sure you could really go, that you could really wrestle." I'm like, they had nothing to do with it. You had a group of guys in a federation that they made their living. Bob Orton used to tell me in the 70s he was making $5,000 a week. If you bring a guy in and couldn't work or didn't know how to get over, you would kill the territory. That's why it was so cagey. They didn't want to bring somebody in and didn't know what they were doing and kill the money train. That's what it's all about. It has not. I can make a star out of anybody, and I can make money off of anybody if we do it right. So.
All right, one more thing. I know we kind of go on pretty long, but me and you had a discussion not too long ago, and I don't know if this was recent, because I don't remember if it was recent or if it was during your, going through the wrestling and everything. But you did security for different rock shows, and did security for Bruce Springsteen and other guys. Was that something that you've always done throughout the years, or is that something you picked on since, because you got some free time?
I didn't do Bruce Springsteen. I think the one I told you about was George Thorogood. And I didn't do.
That's what it was.
I didn't do security. I did private security, which I hang with these people. I've done Vince Vaughn. I've done a bunch of different, which I really can't say, because then I wouldn't get anything anymore.
Sure.
But I do that. I've done that for a long, long time. There's another aspect of my life that most people don't know, but that is the coolest thing to meet. Man. You ever see that movie Blade Runner with Harrison Ford? At the end there where the robot Roy is dying and he makes that speech about, I've seen all these things, I've seen, the stars of Orion, and I've seen attack ships on fire off the coast of Venus and all this kind of stuff. And he goes, all these things will be gone. All these things will be erased because of time. Right. Because of time to die, like tears in the rain. If you're crying and it's raining, you can't see the tears. My life, I'm not going to write a book, but my life has been, God, it has just been amazing. I've lived, I've done some really cool things, but you just can't go around and just telling everybody every little thing you've done, because 99% of the time they wouldn't believe. Like, there's other stuff about me when I was younger that I've done that no one would believe. But the thing is all that's true. And we all have our story. I love people, because everyone has a story. And I guarantee you, if you talk to somebody long enough, they have done or seen something that would just blow your mind, I have a theory. It's like about being in combat, there's certain things you can't talk about with certain people who's experienced certain things. I came up with this analogy once. I said, if I'm sitting at the table with two guys that climb Mount Everest and they start talking about climbing Mount Everest, what do I got to say about that?
Right.
Because I don't know. So 99% of the time, it's just best to be quiet. Like wrestling, like my career, I guess I couldn't, like I meet guys that has done very little, but they act like their names. They act like they should be treated like Stone Cold Steve Austin. And I go, it's best to be humble, than be a pompous ass. But I don't know. I just think I don't. You can go ahead and lie to anybody you want, but man, if you start lying to yourself, which a lot of people do, that's a problem. But yeah, I've done a lot of things with the entertainment world, like music. Playing music. Man, I was the house band for the Backstreet Jazz and Blues Club down there in Westport for 6 months. I mean, I know what it's like to have a crowd, like to do a solo and then have a crowd, just cheer you like you were Eric Clapton.
Oh wow.
And like I said, wrestling, the biggest live crowd I think I've ever wrestled in front of was 9,000 to 10,000 people in Knoxville. I mean, TV was like 4 million because I asked, I'm like, how many states? I said it was like 4 million people. You sit there and put that together, that's amazing stuff. But man,
Oh, yeah.
you can't sit there and go, hey, I'm going to, because everyone, it's like, oh man, I hurt my ankle yesterday. And immediately most people will go, well, my knee is really, really bad. So
Right.
if you go, well, I wrestled Rick Steiner one time, and instead of just, letting him beat my ass, I actually took over and we had a really, really good fucking match. And people will be like, oh, well, I wrestled such and such or whatever. And I don't want it that up because I've forgotten most of the stuff I've done. Like Frost, my champ, he reminds me of shit all the time. He's like, you don't remember that? And I'm like, I don't remember that at all. I don't, and I've been hitting the head a lot. And I'm like, now half my life, I probably don't remember, but.
Definitely.
No wonder
Yeah,
you and Jim are friends. He says that every week.
I say it all the time.
But with the chair shots you throw out there, if I get back in the ring, you give me sort of chair shots, I think the job will be done. So I won't remember anything. Did I tell you this guy here? I tell him and the Lumberjacks and Ruby on one of my shows. I have never in my life seen chair shots that hard. I got video. The fans are just like every time these chairs are just being destroyed. They're swinging them like little kids when they get like Christmas time and they get the rolls of Christmas paper, the cardboard rolls, and they're hitting one another. These guys were doing it with steel chairs, and then they threw the one chair, and you could see the crowd picking it up, going, "Oh my god, that's real!" Dude, I love that stuff, man. That's good shit.
Me and Bobby used to wrestle the Lumberjacks for like a year straight when Bobby first got in the business. He's definitely know how to handle himself too, wrestling them. But
this is going to be their last year.
Yeah, that's what they said to me. Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, I don't know, because they said that to me like 10 years ago as well.
Well,
you just never know.
They're really anxious of getting in the back and helping the younger guys and help running the shows. I will tell you, they're the biggest draw. They draw so much money and they help so much people. There's two more guys that I cannot say more. I surround myself with some of the best people, but the Lumberjacks they are truly legends. They are truly two of the nicest, most laid back guys in the world. People love them. Brian James, same way. Just you can't ask for better. That's why you used to work for me, and every once in a while, because you're just one of the nicest guys. And I don't want any drama, and I don't need anybody that doesn't get. Let's have a good time first, and it's about the fans. But then Lumberjacks or something, man. They're really good guys.
Oh, yeah.
So, Searcher, what about a final match or a Fellware match between the Lumberjacks and Bobby and the Texan again? They're familiar anyway.
all you got to do is tell me when. I mean,
Oh,
I'll
there
book
you
that
go.
right now. I mean it. Because hey, it's going to be their last. I mean, even if they're Terry Funking us, it's going to be their last year. So yes, I'll tell you right now. But let's not just do one match. Let's build it up a little bit so you guys feel the pain, and then we have one big blow off match.
Yeah,
So
there you
yeah,
go.
man, I'm 100% into that. Let's do it.
I'm game.
We'll
All
have
right,
to come up
everybody's
with a date
game.
out there then, because
That's right.
I'll always be down for that stuff.
That'd be awesome.
But
Now we need to get the lumberjacks on so you guys can have a
they would come
Oh
up
no.
in a heartbeat. Yeah, even though we're rivals in the ring most of the time, we're great friends. So it's one of those things. It's a love-hate relationship. When you go through the curtain, it's all about business.
oh, we've got to get
So,
the storyline going now.
yeah. Calm on down. Calm down.
I think
Don't
that
be.
would. I'm telling you, St. Clair always sells out. That would be next month is St. Clair. If we can't get it together I'll do it next month. If you got your license ready to go, we'll set it up for next. I'll do it right now. I mean it. I can do anything I want. I own the company. I have no problem with that. I will bring Texan back out. Bring you in. I think that would be great.
I'm down for anything. Me and Bobby will
It's in
talk
your
about. Unless
it's
Bobby,
in
you
your
want
corner now.
I say I'm down to wrestle, but I have to check. It's Little League wrestling season, and I'm a coach for that. I got one more month, and then I slow down for there.
Well, we'll be back in
to.
St. Clair towards the end of the year too. So we can do it whenever it works for you guys. Lumberjacks
I've
ain't
got
going nowhere.
I've got his dates. Except for the newest ones, you're going to send those to me.
Okay,
But yeah, we'll get together, try to figure out if the dates line up, and see what we can do. Because
sounds good.
I know my, I think you got the license at the same time I did, so our license shouldn't expire until June. Because my
Yep.
blood work, my license, and everything expires in June. So um, you
So
should be
ain't
the
clearing
same way.
us to bring in RTV too.
Probably not. Searcher doesn't really show your videos, right? You don't really do that. So maybe
Well,
we should take it.
we can make an exception. I mean, my theory on that. If I that's another thing I don't understand is when guys have their girlfriends or they record their matches and they put it live on Facebook or eventually they put it up on social media for free. And I'm just like, why would you do that? Because the ideal is to get somebody to buy a ticket to come see you, pay to see you. If you put it up for free, there's no reason for them to pay to come see you. So that's my deal with that. I'm not I don't
Yeah,
usually allow it, but I'll
we
let
don't
you
do
do
it
that.
live. Yeah, we won't do it live so that the people will come.
No, we can do that. That'd be great. I think it needs to be documented because I do. I want that. I think that I think that would be fantastic. I really do.
All right, we'll try to set it up then. We'll do that.
We'll talk
Um,
about it.
so definitely, I think we need to have you on for part two because we haven't even touched really
Part 10.
anything of ACW. We haven't,
Well,
we were still talking about you being a wrestler. Just dabbled into was it MPW of you
it was
running the show
MPW.
there. So
Yeah.
I think we need to have a second time for you to come on so we can start getting the promoter side of you. And then leading up all the way to ACW, and where's your plans for the future of ACW? Are you cool for
Yeah.
coming back on for a second time?
Yeah. 100%, man. No problem.
That's awesome. I felt we've had a great time. And a lot of times, I feel we can just keep going on and on and on and on. But we talked earlier about, we normally shoot for an hour. I don't know where we are. I just know it's been
We're
a while.
almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Went by
Sorry.
quick, didn't it?
Yeah. It goes by quick, especially when you got something to sell, not sell, but say, because
When you're
I
having
already told
fun.
you that I
Yeah.
know LA Cash, and we've had plenty of matches with Lightfoot. So there's so much more that we can dabble into.
So
Yeah.
you said taking a bump from Frankie D when you started. He taught me my first bump.
Did he? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So it's
That's
crazy.
cool. That's cool.
Kind
All
of
that stuff.
Well, me and you has almost lived parallel lives when I
Yeah.
said with the wrestling stuff, because I know that you spoke when I was doing my deep dive. Your first legend that you wrestled was Greg the Hammer Valentine.
No, Bob was.
Oh, Bob? Okay. Um,
Greg was the first arena I ever wrestled in.
oh, okay, so that's where it was. Well, I
You know, I
wrestled
met.
both, but Greg was
Yeah.
my first, and then Bob was my second. So,
That story about Bob is really good too. So, but
yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
yeah, I would love to do it again. It'd be nice.
All
That
right.
chair shot in the end of that match. Did you see the chair shot at the end of that match with Bob?
Uh huh.
I mean, that was one of the hard. That was one of the first chair shots I ever took to the face, and
Okay.
unfortunately, I took a couple more after that. But that was one of the hardest chair shots to the face I ever took, man. And that power driver, I only remember 3. I actually was knocked out on that thing. So
Oh my goodness.
yeah, that
Oh
was
yeah.
that was that was something. Hey,
Yeah.
Yeah,
remember
because
February 17th? ACW is gonna be in St. Clair, Missouri, at the Holy Trinity Church. And you can buy your tickets online now. Front row's $10, but all other tickets are $6. I still can't believe I'm a promoter. I hate promoters, but apparently I'm
Good
okay
at
at
it.
it.
There you go. Hey, we'll definitely put the flyer on the end of this video too, so everyone can see the address, time and date, and everything. So we'll get you hooked up on that. And I love to promote these things, our videos and stuff. So you'll see the Squared Ring on Facebook and YouTube and all the socials. So we'll definitely promote
Yeah.
some more
And
time there.
I have a huge announcement that I need to make right here. You can definitely make the June 22nd show, right?
I mean, off the top of my head, I'm going to say yes.
Okay, well, I'm bringing someone in for you to wrestle. I am actually bringing in Goldberg for you
Oh shit,
to
for
wrestle.
me, huh?
Yeah, well, not really, but it would have been cool. So
Yeah.
would have been really nice.
Oh man, that's awesome.
I
Um,
actually been trying to bring in Goldberg. I think Goldberg would be one to bring in, but it never really see these some of these guys, man. Money is no object. They have lots of it, but for some reason they want a lot more of it. So, but I really think Goldberg would be a good one to bring in.
oh yeah,
No,
he
no
would
one's really
totally.
brought him in.
And
So,
he's always talking about one more match, so maybe that'll be his one more match.
hey, wouldn't that be great? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right now, yeah. So.
All right.
But no,
So
man, it's been great. I love it. Thank you for even thinking of me. I always get left out of a lot of these things. I really appreciate it, and got it.
well,
I
I
can't
tell
wait
you
for
what,
this match.
I
That's what I want.
I tried to hit you up with it months ago, and I told Nate about it, and then it was my own fault for not following back up. But you get some people that say yes to come on, and then you never find a way to get them on because they're dodging. They just wanted to say yes because you were standing in front of them. So
Yeah,
I'm glad that when because I told Nate Friday we were talking about who we were going to have on Monday. I said I know someone I can ask, and you're the only one I asked because I knew I had asked you before, and we just never came back to that conversation. So I'm glad
yeah.
you were able to come on tonight.
I
Um,
don't.
and
I
we'll
just hope
definitely,
it wasn't too boring. I don't have a shit ton of you know.
whatever. Your life story is great, and if you don't fucking see that, you're never mind.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Oh man, it is.
I do like that you were playing the music, though. I still get so many people that want me to play in bands with them or do gigs and stuff. And I do gigs every once in a while just by myself, but I love music, man. I absolutely the guitar and singing. I love all that stuff too. And that's the thing with me. If I'm not wrestling, I'm playing music. So that it's always good to have those two. To always rely on. So
Kind of,
I appreciate you playing some of that. That's made me feel pretty good when you guys were doing that. So
So honestly, we had your Bob Orton matches, part one, part two, loaded up. We we've had a few
with Dan.
pictures loaded up. We just never got to it because the conversation was going so well, and I didn't want to
yeah,
cut it
And
off and say, "And now let's roll to this
yeah,
to this
and
match."
pieces of your podcast too.
Oh yeah,
oh,
because
yeah,
I tell you, your podcast. Well, before we end this, I want to talk about this podcast because this podcast that you had, and you should start this back up because I know you kind of ended it, but your podcast is like trippy because it's not all about wrestling.
No.
It's like going off to left field about Bigfoot and
Yep. Yeah.
aliens
Yeah.
and then you got some road stories because I heard the whole Booker T and the
Yeah.
RVD story today. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's we had that, the beginning of uh, our friends Rick Ruby and GQ because I listened to that podcast as well today, where you had them on. And the very beginning of that podcast, I thought was really fucking cool. So we had that loaded up too, but we never got to any of it, and we're already
We,
2+ hours in. So,
And
yeah,
the
we,
one with
we,
you talking to Dan about The Rock being a dick to him.
oh yeah. Yeah. We had a lot of really good interviews. We were number 2 in the country of Turkey for like 6 months. So there you go. So,
kind of like one of those things,
That is
I'm big
awesome,
in
though.
China. Anyway,
so but yeah.
we could just keep going, but I'm going to end it. So I want to appreciate you coming in. I thank you. Can't thank you enough. Not only for coming in, but actually being one of my promoters as well, and helps spread the love of the Big Texan around. So definitely thank you for doing this for us, and we'll definitely I'll have to pencil you in too for a part 2. And we'll have to do that here next month as well. So that way, we like to keep the part 2s as close to the part 1s as possible. That way, kind of smooths right into it. But
Excellent.
man,
Make sure you send me the link too, so I can put it on ACW and put it on mine and all that stuff too. So
awesome. Everyone, I know I always say this every time, but if you like what you hear, what you see, please like, comment, share, subscribe. Send it to all your friends who love wrestling, love independent wrestling, love little stories about legends and the car rides and everything. Because that's what I really love is the stories that I hear from the legends, or even from us that rode with the legends, going places. I mean, that's the best stuff. But again, like, subscribe, share, comment, and man, yeah, hit us up if you want anything particular. We'll try to do it for you as well. But from everyone from the Squared Ring Podcast, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. See you
See
guys
everybody.
later.
Appreciate